Welcome to Breaking the News Plus. I am Janice Shortle. Thanks for joining us on this evening. We've got an important conversation to have because the city of Minneapolis has a brand new director of neighborhood safety, and that person is Amanda Harrington. And Amanda is joining us today from the city of Minneapolis, just about, 7 hours on the job right now. Thanks for joining us today, Director Harrington.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me.
So for people not well versed in what your title means, what is a director of neighborhood safety?
Well, the Neighborhood Safety Department used to be called the Office of Violence Prevention. So that gives you a clue into the types of services that we provide. Generally, we're working with community organizations to provide services that prevent crime and violence, respond when crime or trauma has happened, and then we ventured into non-police response options as well.
Okay,
So my job leading that department, sorry to interrupt you, my job leading that department is to kind of have the vision for how all of those can work together and ensure that we're doing that at the same time, that we have good safeguards in place so that we can responsibly use taxpayer dollars.
That makes sense. And, we'd be remiss if we're not remembering the fact that we're in May of 2025. We are 5 years since the murder of George Floyd by police officer Derek Chauvin. It was at a time where community in Minneapolis really started to say, is there something else? Can we have neighborhood safety, violence prevention? Something that is kind of not a one-size-fits-all approach to what's going on in our neighborhoods. Am I along the right track here, Director, and what your office provides?
Yeah, absolutely. Some of these services started before the unfortunate murder of George Floyd, but I believe they've expanded since that time because we heard from community that there was so much more trust, particularly in 2020, in community organizations than there was in the government. And so we've been leveraging and partnering with the community to provide services that they want and need.
For people in Minneapolis, I'm a resident of the city and proud to be, and a lot of our viewers are as well, and the surrounding areas, because everybody uses Minneapolis to go to games, to go to theater, to go to entertainment, or just to be in our parks, all kinds of things. So safety in Minneapolis is of utmost importance to all of us in the state of Minnesota. And last week, we had a particularly violent week in the city. When something like that happens, what is the role of now your department, the Department of Neighborhood Safety, when we see things like that or events like last week?
Well, some of the contracts that we have are trauma response contracts. And so the point would be to send these organizations of community members into specific areas where trauma has happened so that they can provide healing. And that's going to look different depending on the community. It might be healing circles, it might be offering individual mentoring, it may just be to have a calming presence in a particular area. We've been collaborating with the health department and some of the other departments in the city so that we can have a coordinated effort on how to respond to the particular events that you were talking about in South Minneapolis.
Director Harrington, you come from the field of social work, correct?
That's right. I was first a social worker and then more recently an attorney.
And so how does the work of social work apply here? It sounds like it goes hand in hand, but I'd like you to explain how you approach this new job.
Yeah, it's a really good fit. I think about leveraging relationships with community members so that they can help themselves. It's one of the things we learned about in social work is really not doing for people, but helping them to do for themselves. And so that's what we're doing with contracting with community organizations to do full circle. It's not always the government that has to provide the service. And so we're empathizing, listening, and then using our resources to activate that back to community.
It's a big job that you have in front of you, obviously, but as you take the role today and you look towards summer, which is usually when we just have more crime due to the nature of the season, what do you want to see from your department over the next 6 months?
The department's already been on a really solid track with creating policies and procedures. I don't think people always remember, but this is a new department. It was really created 2-ish years ago. And so They've been working from the ground up. The team will continue to do that work, and we will continue to get services out on the street. We have a lot of contracts that we are finishing up right now so that we can have people out on the street for this summer and doing all of that. Again, like I said, while we're balancing having processes and procedures, doing our due diligence, because we want to be respectful of the taxpayer dollars that are funding all of these services.
To that point, respectful of the taxpayer dollar, it's been in the news quite a bit. A lot of people talk about in Minneapolis violence prevention groups. And we know there are several that have contracted with the city over the last several years, if not for longer. How do you view violence prevention groups? Will you use them? And how can we make sure that our money as taxpayer is being spent on the up and up?
I think violence prevention groups are critical to the community safety ecosystem that we're creating. So in my prior job, I was talking about creating the community safety ecosystem, but I said we actually have a lot of services in place. We just weren't collaborating necessarily. We need police, we need fire, we now have behavioral crisis response. The violence prevention services that neighborhood safety and the county provides are essential parts of that ecosystem. And we have to make sure that we have adequately trained them on what they need to do to work with a governmental agency, because these aren't just grants that go out with no strings attached. We have to make sure that we have detailed invoices and procedures in place to review them before we pay them out. And, a lot of that's been happening in the city. We're just becoming a bit more stringent, and that's where the training comes in. We have to support the small community agencies that we often work with.
And in your view, it can happen. This can all kind of work in concert together once everybody gets the hang of it?
Yeah, change is hard for everybody, and we've been going through a lot of change in the last few years, but I feel a sense of desire from community members and from the neighborhood safety team that they want to continue to work in partnership. And I think if we have that desire, we'll make it. Where there's a will, there's a way.
What's the biggest challenge you face in this job?
I think trust has been a really big challenge. Trust has come up a lot in community and talking about the city in general and this department in particular. There's been a lot of bumps in the road, but I see a really strong team that has formed before I came in. Add on top of that new policies and procedures and give us a little bit of time, and I think we'll regain the trust of the community as well.
And the goal always is everyone's safety in every part of the city, right?
Yeah, it's safe communities and thriving communities. It's not just enough to be safe. We actually want people to enjoy living in the city and visiting the city. And so I think it's both of those going hand in hand.
Well, from all of us here, we wish you absolutely the best of luck in your new role. I'm sure we'll check in several more times as you get into the summer and get into your work. Director Amanda Harrington, thank you for being on Breaking the News Plus tonight. We appreciate it.
Thank you. Have a good night.
Thank you so much. And that's it for Breaking the News Plus tonight. That was Director of Neighborhood Safety Amanda Harrington, sworn in today as the new Director of Neighborhood Safety. Take care. We'll see you next time.